Hey everybody. Many years ago, I recorded an acoustic cover of Like a Stone. Little did I know that would be my most viewed video on YouTube. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not 100% sure why. Probably just because the song's amazing, but I definitely could have sang it better, and I wish I could go back and do it again and be like, "Hey, check it." But doesn't really matter. You can't ever really tell why people like certain things. You can try to force it, but eh. So anyway, in a new series thing I'm going to try to do here, I'm going to start covering how to sing certain songs, how to break down certain pieces of those songs and turn them into usable things, and hopefully it'll help expand your repertoire of and your understanding of vocal vocabulary and vocal things, and give you new things to try out and new approaches when you're dealing with difficult songs like this is. So if you have an interest in that, come join me and we're going to talk about it. All right, so this is kind of off the cuff, like most things I do. I downloaded an instrumental of Like a Stone, so I'm going to be singing a little bit of it, trying to go over breaking down certain parts of it. There's going to be Chris Cornell mimicry, which I kind of sound like him anyway, so I don't have to push that too far. But then again, I am not him. He was a masterful, amazing human being and singer, and somebody I honor very much and respect very much. And I'm not him. So you always should keep that in mind when you're trying to do certain things like this. I know as a mimicker or as a vocal coach and as a singer and all that kind of stuff that there's a certain amount of wow factor to how much you can sound like the person. But at the end of the day, that's kind of a lifeless way to live. It's kind of like these goobers you see on like Instagram that are dressed up like Johnny Depp and they're like, "I'm a Johnny Depp impersonator." Why? Like, what does that do for you in your life? Somebody sees you and oh my God, you look like Johnny Depp. Cool. Okay, we'll see you. So, at the end of the day, it's all still about trying to develop your own voice. Similar to me, I'm still trying to develop my own personal all this along the way. So, also, you should know that he had a little bit of a lower voice, maybe a higher voice when he started, a little bit of a lower voice as we tend to age, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a baritone. My bridge is perfectly at F sharp 4. Is my piano one? It is. So a song like this is going to put you right at that bridge and a little bit over. So if you're having trouble with stuff like that, or you need more information about mixed voice and things of that nature, I have plenty of videos on those things. But we're going to get into some of that stuff. I'm going to try to break some of this stuff down. If I'm using terminology or phrases and things that you don't understand, maybe you haven't gone down this rabbit hole enough and gathered enough information to understand it yet. Like I said, you can join me on Patreon. I teach a lot more over there. Anyway, let's get started with this. So, um, where do we even begin? Let's start going over some of these lyrics. Actually, we'll talk about the way that Chris Cornell sings this and what's happening here. One of the great things about Chris, and a lot of people don't notice this, that's going to help you with your voice and your vocal journey, especially singing higher, which I've gone over plenty of times, is that Chris was more of a nasal singer. He had a lot of pharyngeal sound in his voice and in his sound. And most people, when they tend to think about that, are going to think kind of like this. When you learn how to utilize the nasal pharyngeal space, you're going to hopefully relax more into that space, and it'll become this amalgamated version of your voice that's not just stuck in on a cobweb. That's what people end up thinking of. On a cobweb. When I tone that down and I relax and I'm not then there ends up being kind of this nicer tonality between. And a good thing about that is that somebody that sings higher and distortional like Chris often did, if we're almost always setting our voice up here first, then the resonance is already kind of up here. Then if we have to go higher, we're just going from here to here instead of having this low throaty sound and then going and going up here. So keep that in mind as we do something like this. Another thing really quick before I start is that he was somebody that didn't enunciate that much. And as you get further and further into singing, hopefully you'll start to recognize that enunciation kind of kills singing. Singing is this elongation of vowels. Ah, when I put words and consonants and things in there, all that kind of crap, it tends to cut me off from the flow of singing. So as you learn about your enunciation and you pay attention to other people's enunciation, you'll start to pay attention to that that flow that we're getting from pushing into the diaphragm and from taking a breath in, et cetera, et cetera. So check that out here. I'll start singing this first verse, and like I said, I'll try to turn on all the Cornell vibes a little bit. So, oh, there we go, reverb. So let me see if I can jump in here. So when I was saying that, everything with Chris, or even a little bit my voice, tends to be colored in that. And there's not much, not much mouth movement or jaw movement. So here we go. On a cobweb afternoon in a room full of emptiness by a freeway, I confess I was lost in the pages of a book full of death, reading I will die alone, and if we're good, we'll lay to rest anywhere we wanna go. So for me to do something like that, we're centering in on our placement. If you actually pay attention to some different singers, you'll notice that they have a continuous, almost single vowel placement, meaning sometimes they're going to sound like they're almost continuously singing an A vowel and then putting the words in that. Once again, what this boils down to is that whatever sound or placement your voice is kind of giving you, that it maybe that it likes or that gives you some kind of a relaxation response, that kind of thing. You can tell my voice kind of wants to sit in that spot. Then I wrap the words around that. I don't go and project and move around a whole bunch here and try to get my sound from here. I go with the feeling first and then kind of wrap everything around the feeling. Does that make sense? Most people go with the sound first and then try to wrap everything around that. No, we're trying to go with the feeling first. So take it like this. On a cobweb. Underneath that is now, once again, I'm making sure that I'm driving the ship from here, meaning I'm always in some way, shape, or form going to be sitting and engaged in my diaphragm. If you're not good at that yet and you haven't worked on your breathing, then this is going to be more difficult for you, or you're going to be judging yourself more harshly because, once again, you're not finding as much of the feeling as you are hearing the sound and trying to be like, I need to sound better, I got to sound better, which is what most of my students do when they're newer to this. So once again, drive the ship from here. And we're just ever so slightly sitting and then wavering. In terms of the song, we're going to be pushing to various degrees. So I'll show you like a meter when I do something like this. On a cobweb afternoon in a room full of emptiness. It's literally just going like this and diving in each time to whatever I need. If I have to get louder, I'm going to be pushing harder, et cetera, et cetera. Now, hopefully that makes some sense. Everything's fitting into that pocket. The verses are pretty easy. I think the second verse, we have a little bit of changes and we can go over that. Then we're going to get into the chorus. Then we're going to start getting into the bridge and the last part, which gets even more bananas. But anyway, does that make sense? On a cobweb. See how that's all sitting in the same place? At the end here, he doesn't necessarily get distortion most of the time. It actually is a little bit of a trick. You end up kind of thinking he's going heavier because of the way that he's projecting and placing his voice. But he doesn't really get that much distortion here. But one of the best parts about this song is that he's clean and he's just ever so slightly starting to dip into that distortion of his, which is just wonderful. And most of the time in songs, we'll get a little bit more clean distortion, clean distortion. It's much kind of more difficult to sit in a place where you can start to kind of add this grit into things and really kind of give more emotional feelings, more conviction, and then kind of back off instead of having to go like this. But anyway, one of the great things too is that if you're working on your distortion, you should be able to find your distortion as a matter of placement up until almost exactly where your bridge is. So you shouldn't have to do this heavy kind of thing, which I'm going to get into. But if I can find my placement, say here in like middle C, this piano's pretty loud. Let me turn this shit down. Come here, piano. So If I'm like in middle C, I'm going to use UNG and I'm going to start pushing it backwards. Everything distortionally happens backwards. If that doesn't make sense to you now, keep experimenting. After a while, hopefully it will. It's coming from the bottom of your chin. It's coming from the vocal cords. It's coming from fry, from extra air. None of that's good. It comes from backwards. So as I find that here, I'll use UNG. And then I'm going to start trying to turn it into ah. But it's all as nasal, very nasal. So there I don't have to do much work. But that takes me right up to my bridge. So also think about your bridge, however you've learned it or whatever. Start thinking about your bridge like a physical bridge, like a physical block, a physical wall. That wall is your hard palate and your soft palate. That is oftentimes what we're pushing up against and what we're building pressure up against, and then what's causing us to flip, because the relationship between that hard palate up here and soft palate and the vocal cords moving up in the throat, or how they're building pressure, that pressure becomes too much and causes the vocal cords to break into falsetto. So start thinking about it like that. In terms of this right here, I'm able to build that pressure up until about F sharp 4 for a baritone, for what I am. Chris was probably close to there, maybe a note or two above it. But either way, in this case, pretty close. So anyway, when we think about that and we think about building up against that, we can add distortion relatively easily in speaking voice. Yeah, 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 yeah. So if you're bearing down like a motherfucker and you're doing all that work, recognize that this blue-haired fucker was on the internet and he was showing you hopefully something to do with finding that without bearing down yet. We're going to get to the bearing down and the harder stuff as we get higher here and we get into the chorus. Let's check out the second verse and see if anything happens in this part. I'll sing it. We'll just go to the same spot here and kind of go over the same placement, same kind of thing. Actually, let's go to the right spot in the song. On my deathbed. We need some reverb and other things. By the way, this is just reverb and 2 different delays. One that's fast, one that's slow. So if you think there's any trickery, my signal chain is compressed. So anyway, second verse, probably about the same as the first. I would pray to the... Here we go. On my deathbed, I would pray to the gods and the angels like a pagan, to anyone who will take me to heaven, to a place I recall. I was there so long ago. The sky was bruised, the wine was bled, and then you led me on. So once again, you can hear me digging into it just a little bit there, I think, as he kind of did, if I'm remembering correctly. But mostly it's in speaking voice, so I don't have to do that much work. I was there so long ago, the sky was... Here we go. Was there so long ago? I was there so long ago. I'm just trying to find that as nasal as I can. It feels like you're trying to rattle your uvula, where your uvula hangs down in the back of the throat. So much of this feels like that's where you're trying to project everything to and where you're trying to point it to. Once again, keeping your head down is going to help, because we're not going like this and stretching the vocal cords out this way. If you do something like that, or you feel veins, neck, fucking shit like this going on, you're most likely going down the wrong road. Pull the head back like this. It helps you to project backwards further. Watch somebody like Brian Johnson from AC/DC. The whole time he's on stage, you'll see him going like this. That's because a lot of these screamers and heavy singers are singing like this and pushing the sound back. Axl Rose, another similar thing. Watch the dude from Mudvayne back when he had a voice and he was screaming all the time, tucked like this. Anyway, nice little helpful tip. Things go backwards. So, but anyway, right there, once again, not above my bridge. I can find that just as a matter of placement. Sky was bruised, wine was bled, and there you led me on. On. There's going to be some mishaps in here where things work and don't work because this is a difficult song. Anyway, you can tell that that's not too difficult. Let's get into this chorus, all right? Hopefully you're following along. Hopefully I'm making some sense. Let's continue here. Now, the chorus. The first chorus, he's not pushing into this too much, but like I said, he's right on that precipice. And in terms of precipices, whatever that plural would be, precipices. This is the first note, which is F4. In terms of being a baritone or most male bridges, that is going to be right here. And then the next note above that, or G, you're going to be right exactly at your breaking point. That's why this song is typically very kind of difficult for people to sing, including myself, and because it's putting you right in that spot. What happens when you're in that spot is, especially when you're not as trained, is that the pressure wants to either build here or it wants to release. Build here or it wants to release. It doesn't mean that we can't build it up here as well in a certain kind of mixed type way, or even distortion, whatever, but if you're trying to sing right at your bridge, we deal with that problem of back and forth. We build pressure down here, then we try to release, and then we don't like the way it sounds, or it's too head voicey, so then we go back to here, et cetera, et cetera. It can get very difficult. But there's something that happens when we distort, and when we are distorting correctly. So many different coaches and stuff will talk about this in different ways. There's the Chris Lipes, from what I've heard, talking about, pretend like you're lifting something up. There's the Ken Tamplins, talk about holding the breath back. Yeah, these things are going on. It's just all these weird kind of ways that we're trying to break down how to get to these muscular places to use these things. I found my first distortional place back when I was about 14 years old. I was singing along to a Nickelback song before they got big and that all happened. And I was super excited about it. It was very low and I couldn't take it very high. And it was kind of very much a different weird juxtaposition from my regular voice. Either way, I found out how to go and have this distorted sound. So yeah, all those things are going to kind of apply. Just know on your journey with this, as you continue to do stuff like this, if you feel like you just can't figure out what I'm saying, or you can't figure out what this person's talking about, and you've tried and you can't, whatever, you have to keep trying and experimenting with these things. I still, after 16 years or however the fuck long it's been, find new places in my throat and new things that I can do that are healthy or sometimes unhealthy. And I'm like, oh my God, I would not have thought that I would find that. Recently, a couple weeks ago, I found a distortional place in my voice that if I keep pushing higher and higher and higher up into the nose, I found a distortional place that I can start to release into. What the fuck does that mean? That means that most of the time when you're in a distortional kind of place like this, like I'm talking about, lifting a desk, you wouldn't imagine there would be much release in that, It's just desk. But I started to find a place where I was able to add the distortion and also start to relax. Once again, singing is going to be dealing with these levels of bap, 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 where you're tense, where you're relaxed, where you're tense, where you're relaxed. And we're trying to get this balance where we can figure out how to do this, where we're not just, fucking ramming it into 11 the whole time. So any of this making sense? I hope so. So as we get into that place, I would probably prefer to talk about it like you're thinking about it, like holding the breath, because that is the first thing that's going to happen down here where the vocal cords are. Like that. Pushing once again from the diaphragm. I'm just blocking the cords off from here. Then I'm going to think about compressing, or kind of a throat type of squeeze a little bit higher. I'm going to try to think about that up around the nasal passages, similar to where my uvula hangs down again. I'm using or oh. So actually, if you can even kind of circumvent this feeling or idea from going down here, keep this lighter and then try to replace it up higher. But like I said, you're still going to be holding your breath back from there first. You're going to be singing from that weird ass place and that weird noise that I'm doing. There's going to be some mixing happening if you know about that, but distortion is a little bit of a different place. it's pushed back. It's just like all these things, your enunciation is limited. So you're not going to have a whole bunch of variety of sound. When you go above your bridge, I know I'm saying way too many things, but when you go above your bridge, the lower jaw can barely engage. You can barely engage any of the lower jaw in the neck because it's going to pull everything down and you're going to break, and it's just not going to work. The best way I can tell you about this is, as I sing this and stuff, is to think about your enunciation from staying in a pocket, and you're like a ventriloquist dummy. You're opening the mouth to accommodate for the words and the sound, but you're not really using the jaw to say tea or me or we should have tea or anything like that. So I'm going to try to do this right out of the gate here and sing this chorus. I'll try to go a little bit lighter, but see if you can tell. I'm going to try to go a little bit between that regular kind of clean sound and then this kind of distorted sound, or maybe I'll just stick with that. I don't really know what's going to happen. Let's find out. This could be the dumbest fucking video I ever made. Here we go. So kind of a little bit more compressed there. My voice is a little bit tired from tracking a bunch of stuff yesterday and the day before. But let's go over that right there. So, in your house alone to be is pretty much just me mixing a little bit and staying clean. If I go back and I get into that compressed place that we're talking about that most people want to know about, in your house, when I start to lean into that place, there I'm starting to get a little bit of clean and distorted. You hear it coming in the back, like that. That's where I'm getting my distortion from. It will help me to stretch and it'll help me to do some things in a healthy way, but it can also be a little bit more exhausting to stay in that place. Just like lifting weights, it's putting us in that place where we're going like this. Makes some sense. So see what you can do. The thing I have to tell you, though, is that try to stay away, again, from this muscle. In your house I long to be. If you start bearing down and finding anything from here, your stretch, your distortion, that muscle is going to start taking over. It's going to convince you that you have distortion, higher notes, etc., but you're just locking yourself into an unhealthy coordination. I know, because I started out singing like that. I still have problems with that sometimes. That muscle sucks. So let's see if we can go over a little bit of the enunciation for this. In your house. Do you hear how I'm in the same pocket right there? That I vowel or vowel stays really nice and solid. In your house I long to be. If you notice right there, as I quickly go through this, I took to be, and it was to be. To be, to be. I can get a little bit of that in here if we pay attention to our enunciation from the front. That's where enunciation is mostly going to happen anyway. But for the most part, I have to stay forced open. The higher I go, the more my throat and everything needs to stay forced open. To be, to goes like that, and instantly just kind of hurt my voice. Makes sense? Roam, same thing. Roam, bound, roam. Instead of room, I can't pull any of that ooh down here. It's going to push me towards head voice, and it's going to pull tension in. So it's roam by roam. Passionately, I'll wait for you there. Once again, got to be careful with how much I can get away with there. For you there, like a stone, I'll wait for you there alone. Does that make some sense? Enunciation's key here. So let's go on to this second verse. There's some crazier, or second chorus, I'm sorry, that happens here that's a little bit more difficult. And then that beautiful lasting note on the end. Hopefully I won't embarrass myself because, you know, there's another thing you should know about when you track songs as an artist or recording in a studio or whatever, is that these things are not recorded in one take. They're not even recorded in 2 takes or 3 takes. It's usually never come in and sing the song the whole way through. It's comped together and it's edited. So I just heard in an interview with Billie Eilish, with David Letterman was doing his show, and on Netflix, that is, not his old show. And they were talking about some of these songs having 100 takes that they comp together. That instantly makes me, as a recording engineer, want to die. For tracks I'm doing, maybe at the most I'll get 10, or if I have screams I really want to get right, maybe like 15. But it becomes a nightmare trying to track through, and then you got to try to take notes and be like, number 7 was good or whatever. So anyway, in this case, a song like this, you have plenty of runs at certain lines, plenty of runs where you can piece together things. Maybe you don't like the end of something like that, so you can try it a bunch of times and then just copy and paste and put it in there. So keep that in mind as we do something like this. If I flub a couple of these lines or I break, I would have always had the availability, as Chris would have, to go back in and just be like, all right, give me 5 of those lines or something like that. But anyway, the point is that we make it a cohesive piece. So I'll try to do this. All the things, just listen for them. The same kind of stuff's going to apply. But I have to go a little bit higher on some of these notes. I got to go back to my lyrics. In your house, I long to be. Roam by roam, patiently I wait for you there, like a stone. I wait for you there, alone, alone. Now, not too much to talk about there. That was much different. But of course, that last note goes right over the bridge, and we're hanging on to it for dear life, and we're trying to really bear it down. With that being said, I'm trying to find any of the space I can find with the grabbing a hold of the distortion there. But with Chris, it just it sounds like he's giving everything he has. So there's definitely going to be a dipping down. What I like to think of when I talk about, really heavy stuff like that with diaphragmatic support, if you're able to push into it and such, as we have diaphragmatic support starting here right under the sternum most of the time, and we're dipping into it in various degrees. A lot of times with really heavy songs, I like to imagine almost like a fist. And you probably saw my hand kind of go like this while I was doing this anyway. That's probably from doing this for too long. But anyway, I like to think about a fist just right there, pushing into my diaphragm, pushing into my stomach. And for this last note, alone, alone. I really just bearing down there and trying to get my compression and my distortion happening as much as I can up in the top. If you're feeling like you're hitting a wall, you need to check in with yourself, meaning you're building a wall and you're starting to flip, or you're just you're just redlining your body and yourself. You need to check in with yourself and make sure that you know some of these things about lowering the larynx, mixed voice, and things like that, so that you're setting your throat up to be open, and so that you're not just pushing right up against that precipice. Again, your bridge may be higher than mine, so you might be able to do this more easily, and then you get to some of these notes at the end and you're like, nope. So anyway, herein lies the lesson again. Try to make sure that you're able to connect. If you want to go about some of these things, take something like that note right there, and let's siren up to it really quick. I'm not going to break this down too much. Oh, nice and open. I'm still able to continue to rise. There, I'm not stuck. But it happens very often when I'm rehearsing and stuff. I'll get these lower songs and then I'll start getting stuck down here. So keep yourself out of the lower throat as much as you can. Now let's go to the bridge. The bridge, we're staying even more kind of calm, quiet, and collected. it gets even more of this emotional kind of storyteller vibe, and I'm just driving everything through the nose. I'm barely enunciating. I tend to be like that as well because of life and jaw problems and things, but we'll do it like Chris did it, and then we end with that, once again, that powerful note. Let's go. Until the day was gone, and I sat in regret of all the things I've done, for all that I've blessed and all that I've wronged. In dreams until my death, I will wander on in your house. So once again, great thing, finding a pocket. If you have trouble with little things like that, little trills, little lines, you might not be using the diaphragm, but if you are, try to shake that diaphragm to make those notes for you. Try to get the notes from here. Oh, oh, oh. It's kind of like it's like somebody kind of tickling you, or you're laughing. It's coming from the same place. So you can take it like that, and you can try to speed it up. Just a little bit of help for trills. Same thing on the end. Same high note. And still not really that easy, but trying to bear down into it. Now, this last chorus is a real fucker. We can try to go over some of these things. I can try to sing it first and see if I'm even able to just jump into it and do it in one take. But, the same kind of information is going to apply. We need to find some release into head voice, or into a heady place in some way, shape, or form, not meaning that it's going to sound like head voice. We're still mixing, we're still distorting, but there needs to be some version of like a release, so that you're not just going like this kind of thing. Like I said, if you feel like you're just pushing up against that bridge, you're not going to make it, and you're going to have trouble. So one way we can go about this is by doing it clean. Let me try to sing it first, and then we'll try to go over singing it clean. Most of the time, the rule of thumb is that if you can't do these things clean, probably shouldn't be doing them distorted. Let's try it once. I gotta turn this back on. Hope you're still with me. Hope I didn't talk too much. Gotta back up so I know where I am. Wasn't too bad. Like a stone, like a stone. So that would be the way that I would go about practicing this. Or you can try to get in your distortional place. The point of, again, with this is that if you feel like you're going and you just can't barely sustain it, then you probably need to back off the pressure and practice it from a clean place. In your house, I long to be. Rome bound Rome, patiently I wait. Once again, pay attention to the vowel modification. Patiently. If I go Lee, I know he does a little bit of that, but it pulls in the jaw. It's going to wear you out. It's not as healthy. It's starting to distort the vocal cords from here because it's pulling them this way, all that stuff. Same thing with in your house, I long to be toe. I'm getting a little bit of what we're going to refer to again as release because I'm not pulling up two. A long toe goes instantly like that and breaks. So I can't pull in two. So in a sense, by modifying my vowel, I'm getting a little bit of release there. Anyway, same thing again. If you're having trouble with this stuff, that high note is way up here, which is A sharp 4. It's fucking high. So that would be sirening up to it, figuring out where it wants to be in the body. Then trying to add your dirty, gritty stuff on there, which makes you have to hold back a little bit more, get into that more distortional place, which many of you are trying to find, I'm sure. Check in with yourself with that again. Can you rise from that note? That means you're doing it in a healthy way and you're not going having your eyeballs shoot out of your fucking head. The last thing on here is this nice little that nice emotional kind of thing. Lane Staley, I think, did a little bit of that too. I would hear in his voice where he just had these almost vocal fryish kind of quiet notes that come through. But I think I covered most of this. I may have covered it poorly. This is my first time trying to go through a song. I wanted to break down all the parts. I wanted to prove that I can sing these things in a healthy way, and mostly hear whatever in one take, but also hopefully just add some nice helpful information along the way. If you're sitting there trying to do this with an acoustic guitar, it is gonna fucking be way harder. I just tell you that because that was another reason why I wish I could have done it again without the acoustic, because playing, remembering the chords, fucking doing all this stuff at the same time and everything, you're adding a lot of pieces to the mix that don't need to be there. So my advice is to try to do these things little by little, piece by piece, and then try to branch them together and see how well you can put it all together. But even if you can't do the whole song that great and you got to not give every part 100%, that's a part of knowing how to be a good singer as well. You can't go on stage and fucking have everything be 110% and be fucking going heavy all the time. You're gonna wear out. Think about some of these things like stone. Think about them again, like holding a milk jug. After a while, you're gonna be like a stone, and you're gonna be getting tired. So, I hope this helped a little bit. Like I said, if you want to join me on Patreon, I'm going to be talking about these things more and more, trying to break down and give more information to those lovely folks that are helping me live my life and support me. So, thank you. I'm going to be talking about Journey, Don't Stop Bereaving next. We're going to believe in some things and see if one of those things is Journey and me. Okay, bye.